I'm Sean Aylmer, and this is a Fear and Greed extended interview. All the other good bits we couldn't fit into the daily podcast. If you're looking for the daily episode of Fear and Greed, check the podcast playlist. Otherwise, enjoy the interview. Regular listeners might remember me mentioning Austal a couple of weeks ago. At the time, the Australian shipbuilder had been awarded a $300 million contract by the US Navy for the design and construction of a fast transport vessel. Austal's US subsidiary has delivered 12 of the vessels since 2012, and what's more, they're on schedule and under budget. It's a terrific story of an Australian company succeeding on the global stage. Paddy Gregg is the CEO of Austal and is my guest today on Fear and Greed. Paddy, good morning.
Good morning.
Can you give me a thumbnail sketch of Austal? It's a much bigger company than most people realise. We don't hear a lot about it, but it really has been quite a success story, hasn't it?
Absolutely. Austal started from very humble beginnings, building small cray fishing boats here in Western Australia. And over the last 30 years has grown to work in both commercial and defence vessels, both here in Australia and in the United States, something that we're incredibly proud of, that we are a really strong part of the naval industrial base in the US, and some of the products that we're able to turn out for them are really world class. And now not only do we build vessels, we also support vessels that are in service. So, a really great portfolio and a whole lot of capability, all started here in Western Australia.
Fantastic. Now, we'll get to what you're doing now, but aluminium vessels, is that where your comparative advantage is?
That's certainly where we started, and the benefits that aluminium brings, being obviously a lighter material than steel, the efficiencies that we can deliver with that material in terms of top speeds or fuel efficiencies. So certainly where we started in terms of moving into passenger ferries, two things that are critically important to the fast passenger ferry market are the speed of the crossing, and then of course for the operator, the efficiency with which they can do that. So the lightweight offers them fuel savings over a traditional steel vessel.
Okay. You mentioned that you're involved with the US Navy. Where are your shipyards? Western Australia, obviously. Where else?
Yeah, so here in Henderson in Western Australia, another shipyard in Balamban in the Philippines, a shipyard in Vung Tau in Vietnam, and in Mobile in Alabama in the United States.
Okay. And are governments your main customers? What's the commercial government split?
Yeah, they are today. So we've seen a steady progression of our revenue moving more and more towards defence work. And today we are probably 90% defence and 10% commercial.
Okay. And presumably governments have more money at the end of the day and potentially more need.
Absolutely. Generally, a much more stable look ahead and a much greater cash flow and order book in terms of volumes of vessels they order. So whenever we do commercial work, it tends to be one-offs, and there are some peaks and troughs that come with that, which give us complications with order books, workforce, and all the things you have to manage on a daily basis. But often with defence customers, they will want a class of vessels. So here in Australia at the minute, we're building 21 Guardian-class vessels and 6 Cape-class vessels. And in the United States, we have the EPF program and the LCS program. Again, programs of work rather than one-offs, which make life a whole lot easier for us whenever we're doing our forward planning and keeping our staff employed.
So there's lots to unpick there. The first thing is your time horizon is extremely long, isn't it, when you're talking about investing?
Absolutely. Traditionally in the past, it's been more difficult to invest whenever you've got ones and twos of commercial orders. So really making that business commitment is a very brave move. And that gets easier and easier as you get a much further look ahead. So, for example, at the minute, we're making a very big investment in steel capability in the United States. So traditionally, we've been based in aluminium ships. 2 years ago, we made the transition to steel capability here in Henderson with the Guardian-class boats for the Commonwealth. And we've just embarked on a journey in the United States to invest $100 million US in steel capability in our shipyard in Mobile, Alabama.
Wow. The aficionados of what you do won't be happy with me, but can you explain, for example, what a Guardian vessel is? What is it that makes that specific vessel special?
So these are very capable vessels. So this is a program where the Commonwealth of Australia is gifting vessels to Pacific Island nations. which allows them to do fisheries protection, smuggling, trafficking, and really be part of the broader Australian network in terms of intelligence and what's happening out in the Pacific. These boats are about 40 metres long and have a crew of about 20 people, and really very capable boats. With the steel hull, they're much easier to repair if anything goes wrong than an aluminium vessel, aluminium being quite a specialist material to work with in shipbuilding. But where Austal brings a real advantage, we can put an aluminium superstructure on top of these boats and get back to some of those efficiencies that we talked about earlier.
We'll be back with more in a moment. My guest today is Paddy Gregg, CEO of Australian shipbuilder Austal. So if we shift to manufacturing, and it hasn't had a great run in Australia, and really over a few decades now it's been declining, building ships, though, is a really strong sign of support for Australian manufacturing, and Austal particularly has often been held up as a leading manufacturer, not just of vessels, but in the country. How do you see the Australian manufacturing industry? And then I'm just interested in how Austal compares to other shipyards around the world.
Yeah, good question. So at the minute, we're incredibly excited with some of the opportunities we see in Australia. The Navy have published a force structure plan, which gives us a 15-year look ahead of what they intend to build. And that's a look ahead like we've never seen before in Australia. So really strong commitment from government and Navy into the sort of vessels they want and when they want them. And that allows industry then to rally round, understand what their future may look like, make investment as appropriate, and really move the whole manufacturing industry forward on that really sound, solid base that Australia is committed to shipbuilding and indeed sovereign capability. So very exciting that we can give future generations hope that there's a longevity of work in this manufacturing industry. Having seen so many other manufacturing industries go to the wall over the years, I'm really confident that there's going to be a really bright future for naval work going forward in Australia. And of course, that's not just the shipbuilding. Once those ships are built, they need to be supported and maintained. And often vessels have a life of 25 years plus. So that really is a long-term commitment to manufacturing work in this country.
So once you look at that 15-year plan and you think about what you might need to invest in Austal, I'm interested in who your competitors are. Who are you up against in those sorts of operations?
So traditionally in the commercial market, our competitor has been Incat in Tasmania. They also build the 100-metre plus aluminium catamarans that we've dealt with traditionally. But whenever you consider Navy, there's really two naval shipbuilding hubs in Australia, one of them here in Western Australia, and the other one, of course, in South Australia. And whenever we do the analysis in force structure plan, we make some assumptions, as one would have to, based on work that's likely to be tendered, when it's going to be tendered, who we think our competitors will be, what will we be best at building based on our capacities, our capabilities, our facilities. And really doing that analysis suggests that those two hubs should be reasonably full for the next 15 years. And when we look at competitors, of course, there's the likes of BAE Systems, some of the foreign primes that are in Australia, the likes of Lursen that won the recent OPV program, that they'll be building 10 vessels here in Henderson. So competition comes from a number of places, but having been in the game so long, we're really confident we can provide efficient solutions going forward.
Okay, and when it boils down to why is Austal better than the others? Everyone is competitive, so I'm not being negative about your competitors in any way, but what is it that you think Austal really brings to the party better than others?
We're reasonably unique in that we've been around for a long time, and with the commercial market, we've had the opportunity and ability to deliver a high volume of vessels. So defence work tends to be a little bit slower and take a little bit longer, meaning people don't often see the full life cycle of a vessel, whereas the commercial work has allowed us to focus really on design, then build, and sustainment. So we've had a tremendous opportunity to learn from all the vessels we've had in service and feed those ideas back through the design. And having been manufacturing vessels for 30 plus years, we believe we're pretty efficient in terms of how we do it. And of course, a lot of those vessels having been commercial vessels, there's a pretty cutthroat global market for commercial vessels, which should allow us to translate some of our skills, processes, speed of decision making through to defence contracts and really deliver on defence contracts in a way that traditional defence contractors will not have seen without the benefit of the commercial work.
You announced last month that you had delivered 12 naval vessels on schedule to under budget in the US. That must be pretty pleasing. And how often does that happen?
Exactly. Not often you pick up newspapers today or listen to things that talk about defence companies coming in under budget or ahead of schedule. And for me, that all comes from the commercial background. Generally, with commercial vessels, it is cutthroat and there are big penalties for delivering late. And you've got to be very sharp on price, so you've got to have great cost control as you go through commercial work. And it's all those sort of factors that we just naturally bring into the defence world. And I hope that's a big differentiator for us going forward.
Stay with me, Paddy. We'll be back with more in a moment. I'm talking to Austal Chief Executive Paddy Gregg. We've talked a lot about manufacturing and shipbuilding, but presumably there's a lot of innovation and design at the front end.
There certainly is. And innovation has always been very key to Austal. Starting out with aluminium vessels, those aluminium vessels then growing in size and being able to produce aluminium vessels in excess of 100 meters. And of course, a lot of those were catamarans. So not your traditional monohull. The catamarans that we've built are absolutely perfect for the commercial ferry market because of their great load carrying capability. The very wide passenger decks and car decks allow a whole lot of cargo and people to be moved, loaded, unloaded incredibly efficiently. So it's a very technology focused company from that perspective. Those catamarans were then taken forward and developed into trimarans. There aren't many builders of trimarans anywhere in the world. And for us, the trimaran is a really exciting example of technology in shipbuilding in that it takes the sea-keeping abilities of a monohull, but provides the load-carrying capabilities of a catamaran. So really a ship that is incredibly clever. And we've done so much research into trimarans, we can almost tune the trimaran to the sea conditions it will operate in. Because one of the things that's very important to us is the sea-keeping of the vessel and how passengers feel. And with a lot of commercial passengers, if you're moving maybe 400 passengers on a commercial vessel, with Navy spending so much time at sea, keeping sailors fit, happy, healthy, ready to do their best at any given time, some of the technology that we've developed in the commercial world, transferring it to navies, we see as really advantageous.
Fantastic. So what's coming out for the next decade for Austal? What's the future look like?
So what's next? There's some, sticking on the theme of research and technology, I think emissions is going to be something that is absolutely critical in the shipping industry. And just recently we've launched battery powered vessels, so zero emission vessels, batteries to drive through electric drive and electric motors rather than traditional diesel engines and gearboxes and water jets. So really thinking about the future of commercial markets, and then also how those can be brought into defense markets to help with them. Maybe when you consider a defense vessel moves very quickly to get to a position and then spends some time loitering, looking, listening, analyzing, and being able to combine what we learn in the commercial world, bringing that through to the defense world to give them that capability is something that I think Austal is very good at, bringing across technologies from the commercial market to defense, and similarly some of the things that we learn in defense being able to reapply in the commercial market. So there really aren't many people out there that are doing ships in both aluminium and steel, in commercial and in defense, and in design, build and support. So reasonably diversified shipbuilder that I think gives us a really exciting future. And the company being in a reasonably healthy financial position, we've done well over the last few years. That's giving us the platform to invest in research and development and really try and take shipbuilding to the next level.
Paddy, you've taught me a lot this morning. Thank you very much for talking to Fear and Greed.
Thank you very much.
That was Paddy Gregg, CEO of Australian shipbuilder Austal.